Alright, penultimate episode, Feel the Night. Ali finally shows up and actually plays a fairly large role in the episode. Slightly disappointed that it's just her and Johnny for the whole of this episode. I mean, presumably she's going to be in the last episode as well and get a bit more development there with some of the other characters. But yeah, it was just sort of a nice sort of catching up on what she's been up to the last 30 years. I do like the way the show is sort of making effort, not just to sort of make reference to stuff that happened in the films, but also to fill us in on the gap in between the event of the films and the start of this series. As she's got 2 kids now, she's divorced. I find it interesting that they make her divorce. They clearly went to the effort of making sure that Johnny had already hooked up with Carmen by the time he reunites with Ali, so there's no chance of them two hooking up. But they still make Ali divorced. I don't know, I guess that's so that almost kiss that they have, it doesn't seem like adultery, maybe. Cause, technically it is kind of okay, because, Johnny's not completely certain about if he's really in a relationship with Carmen yet, and Ali's divorced. So, I don't know. I think that's probably the only reason. It's kind of weird seeing Elizabeth Shue now, because I just think of her as Marilyn from The Boys. I really wouldn't have recognised her as Ali, actually. I mean, I know for a fact that is Elizabeth Shue, but if you see her in Karate Kid and then you see her in this series, or even in The Boys, or even in what was it, Leaving Las Vegas that she was in, I would not recognise her. Yeah, another golfing stuff montage. That's about the third that they've had across the whole Karate Kid series now. And I don't know, I just found it a bit sort of strange. I mean, those two have got to be late 40s at least. Are they not a little bit too old to be doing stuff like that? I mean, I'm mid-30s and I would feel a bit of a goofball doing stuff like that, but I guess it's sort of reminiscing about things the two of them actually did do as kids as well. And it's interesting, this show's only half an hour out with this episode, and there's so much that happens, because again, we've got a lot of development with the Cobra Kai kids. Robbie is now clearly a member and trying to get involved in their inner circle. Interesting, it's sort of Tori that sort of throws him a bone and tries to get him involved in what they're up to with stealing a Cobra. I have to say, I do like the sort of attention to detail that the show has, because we establish early on that Kreese has this tank with a Cobra in it in the Cobra Kai dojo now. But then he releases that Cobra in Daniel's auto dealer, so I guess that Cobra's gone now, so now it needs replacing. So I like it, it all sort of connects. Hawk, there's sort of an interesting window into his character here, that he's kind of sort of wanting to sort of go out there and do something, to stand up with Cobra Kai and, do the things that are right for them to do. But when it comes to the sort of heat of the moment, a little bit of a sort of difficult moment where he has to go in there and grab the snake with his hand, he's he's uneasy about, it's uses the excuse that, this wasn't the plan or anything, but, I think really he's just sort of making the excuse that, he's not up to it. He wants to sort of pretend that he wants to do this sort of thing that it's important, to make them know how they feel, but really deep down he's a little bit of a coward. He doesn't really want to step up to the plate and do the difficult thing, whereas Robbie, of course, does do the difficult thing and just sticks his hand in there and gets there. I mean, I assume that's what he does it off screen, and obviously he earns a lot more respect for having been a little bit more bold in doing that. So I think Hawks, you see him sort of look away when he discovers what Robbie's done. I don't know if maybe he's annoyed that this guy he doesn't like has actually done the thing that's earned the respect of all the students, or if he's maybe sort of thinking to himself, I should have done that, I shouldn't have been a coward, I should have plucked up the courage to do that myself. Looks like there's a little bit of a bond forming between Tori and Robbie, which is interesting because they've not really had any kind of dialogue between the two of them at all up until this point, except for one scene in the previous episode. Another pairing we've not really seen very much, Miguel and Daniel. They get a bit of bonding. We get sort of a callback to that scene from season 1 where Johnny tells Miguel all about the events of the first film from his perspective. And Daniel sort of tells his side, which is kind of always the side that we sort of saw. It's kind of sort of calling back to kind of, I think, what has been a little bit of controversy about the first Karate Kid film, which is the scene on the beach where Johnny knocks Daniel to the ground, but then Daniel really overreacts with the way that he just absolutely lays out a massive punch on Johnny just for throwing him to the ground there. Daniel, uses the excuse, well, he knocked me to the ground first. But obviously Miguel was not there to see just how aggressive that punch was. The show I had seen, I have had a chance to sort of rewatch it, and it's kind of it's kind of played up as a little bit of it's too good an opportunity to pass up. He's been tormented by Johnny for a good few weeks now, and this is like a small chance of a little bit of revenge. And I think he also says to Ali something about what goes around comes around, and then after he's done it, he says it's coming around. It's sort of like this is his idea of comeuppance. Probably still not right that he did it, but it kind of makes sense why he would sort of want to do it. So I'm not entirely sure I really agree with the sort of things that Daniel's saying. I think maybe Daniel would have been better off to just admit, I was slightly naive as, like a 17-year-old kid, and really, I think the more logical approach to take to this is, it was over 30 years ago. It's silly to still hold a grudge against someone for things like this. And a lot of sort of referencing sort of very specific instances from over 30 years ago, because they also talk about Dutch running over Ali's radio. Now, it makes sense that they would reference that in quite specific details to us, the audience, because, of course, we've seen those instances many times in the films. Well, but to them, this was over 30 years ago. It doesn't really make sense to me that they would remember these things so vividly, and that these events would even be important to them. So, I found that a bit strange. Kreese has also got a little bit of his philosophy, the enemy is your friend. A throwback to, again, something he learned in Vietnam. Again, no flashbacks for Kreese in this episode. I think they may have been better off having some flashbacks here, sort of showing Kreese learning this lesson and exactly how he learnt it and why he still believes in it now. Actually, oddly enough, it's more sort of Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang that seem to be sort of trying to learn the lesson, the enemy is your friend in this episode, because those two dojos tried to team up and unite over their common dislike of Cobra Kai. And they really do seem to be playing up Cobra Kai as the bad guys now. But there's nobody really in Cobra Kai that we have like any kind of major liking for. Those are certainly characters that we follow. Whether or not we're actually supposed to be rooting for them or like them is still a little unclear to me. Other than that, I can't think of much else. I mean, we see Ali with Daniel at the very end of the episodes. Interesting to see where that goes. And it's pretty clear now that Miguel and Sam are very much back together, which I don't know what to think about at the moment, really. I'm not a huge fan of Sam, but Sam and Miguel as a couple, I guess they were okay for a while. I'm glad Miguel finally got the chance to meet Daniel, because that was something he wanted to do back in season 1. Actually, as it turns out, it's not really clear exactly how long Sam and Miguel were going out during season 1, but in terms of the episodes, they're only going out for like 2 episodes, or maybe even less than that. It might be interesting just to see a bit more of them as a couple now. We've only got 1 episode left, but hopefully they'll stay together in season 4, and we'll see how that works as well. That could be interesting. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think I've pretty much covered everything that major that happens, and just the 1 episode to go now. We'll see what is going to happen between the two JoJos, and they don't really seem to be building up to any kind of dramatic finale of any kind. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here. If maybe we're going to see another fight between Johnny and Daniel. That could be interesting. I'll see you for the finale soon, guys.